The stars outside the window of Ronan's ship looked cold and silent, like they were watching him. He sat alone in the cockpit, a message flashing on the screen. The words were clear. Deliver the alien female and her 2 offspring to station, K-14, no questions, no delays, or lose everything. Ronan stared at the message for a long time. His fingers hovered over the console, but he didn't press anything. He already knew who the message was about. They were in the cargo bay, locked, inside a steel cage, a mother and her 2 small children. Aliens, yes, but not dangerous, just scared, weak, and silent. Ronan had picked them up during a job 2 days ago, a secret trade on a dead moon. The man who gave them to him didn't even look them in the eyes. They're valuable, he had said, tossing Ronan a chip. Keep them clean, don't talk to them. Ronan had delivered weapons before. Machines. Fuel. Sometimes even medical crates that were clearly stolen. But this was different. These were living beings, and they were terrified. He got up and walked through the narrow hallways of his ship, the Raven's Hope. The engines hummed softly under his feet. When he reached the cargo bay, he stopped just outside the cage. The alien mother sat in the corner, her long silver-blue hair dirty and tangled. Her eyes, large and glowing faint purple, watched him carefully. She said nothing. Her arms were around her children. One was sleeping. The other stared at Ronan, unmoving. Ronan took a breath. I brought food, he said, sliding a sealed packet through the bars. She didn't move. It's not poisoned, he added. It's just soup, real broth. Still, she didn't take it. He sighed and sat down on a crate nearby. You don't trust me, I get it, I wouldn't either. For a moment no one spoke. Only the low hum of the ship filled the silence. Finally, she reached out slowly and took the food. She didn't eat it. She gave it to the child who was awake. The boy took it and started sipping carefully, as if every drop mattered. What's your name? Ronan asked. She stared at him. I'm Ronan, he said. Not a good man. Not a bad one either. I just fly cargo, that's all. Still silence. I didn't sign up for this, he muttered. I move boxes, not people, but they paid. And I needed the credits. The mother's eyes narrowed. Then, in a soft voice, she said, Cyrelli. Ronan blinked. It was the first word she had spoken since he got her. Cyrelli, he repeated. And your kids? She touched the heads of each one. Tallow and Mina, Ronan nodded. They're strong. After what they've been through. Cyrelli looked away. He leaned forward. Look, they ordered me to take you to a place, Station K-14. I don't know what happens to people there, but I've heard the stories. Slavers, experiments, auctions. Her hand tightened around her children. I don't want to be part of that, he said quietly. She looked at him again, her face still unreadable. Then don't. He laughed once, bitter. It's not that easy. They're watching. My ship is tagged. If I don't deliver you, they'll come after me, kill me. Or worse. She stood up slowly, still holding her kids close. Then do what you must. Ronan stood too. What if I said I don't want to do it? Then you are a fool, she said softly. Because no one disobeys the syndicate and lives. He looked at her. She didn't blink. She wasn't trying to be cruel. She was just telling the truth. Ronan turned and left the cargo bay, but his mind was racing. That night, he couldn't sleep. The stars outside his window looked colder than ever. He thought about the children. Talo's quiet eyes, Mina's tiny, hands gripping her mother's robe, and Cyrelli, who had already accepted her fate. He stared at the screen. The message was still there. Deliver the cargo or be terminated. Slowly, Ronan reached out. He deleted the message. Then he opened a private channel on his ship's control board and began rerouting the ship's coordinates, not toward Station K-14, but somewhere else. Somewhere safe. The camera in the hallway blinked. It had seen the change. He knew what that meant. They were coming. But for the first time in years, Ronan didn't care. I was supposed to sell them, he whispered to the stars. But maybe it's time someone saw them as more than cargo. The stars didn't change, but Ronan had. His ship, the Raven's Hope, now flew a different path, one that no sane trader would take. He had ignored the order. He had hidden the alien mother and her children, and now the syndicate would come for him. But that wasn't what worried Ronan the most. It was the sound he heard late at night, soft coughing. A child struggling to breathe. He walked to the hidden storage room he had converted into a safe space. He had jammed the sensors and wiped the logs. As far as the system was concerned, the room didn't exist. Inside, the air was warm but thin. Sorelli sat on the floor, holding her son. Talo's skin, pale and glowing just hours ago, had dimmed to a dull gray. His breathing was shallow. Mina clung to her mother's side, scared and silent. "I need a medkit," Ronan said. "Now." Sorelli didn't stop him. For once, she didn't speak. Her eyes, usually sharp and alert, were full of something heavier than fear. Resignation. Ronan ran to the back of the ship, found an old first aid case buried beneath parts and wires. Most of it was useless, but one thing still worked. A small injection capsule labeled C9 Biostim. It was not made for alien biology. It could help, or kill. Ronan returned and held it up. "I don't know if this is safe for him, but he won't last long without it." Sorelli looked at her son, then back at Ronan. Slowly she nodded. He injected the stim into the child's tiny arm. Talo flinched, his body tensed. Then, after a few seconds, he exhaled. His chest moved more, easily. His eyes fluttered open. Mina let out a small sound, a giggle of relief. Sorelli didn't smile, but she did something else. Something Ronan hadn't seen yet. She lowered her head in gratitude. "You saved him," she whispered. Ronan sat down on the metal floor, breathing hard. "Not yet. I bought time. That's all." They sat in silence for a long while. Then she asked, "Why?" He looked up. "Why what? Why are you helping us? You could have delivered us and lived a rich life. Why run? Why risk your ship, your freedom?" Ronan didn't answer at first. He looked at the children. Mina had already curled into a ball and fallen asleep. Talo stared at the ceiling, tired but safe. "For now." "I saw your son dying," Ronan said quietly. "And I thought, if that was me in a cage, with my children sick and no one helping, I'd want someone to care." "You are a human," she said. "Your kind doesn't care about ours." "I'm not my kind anymore," Ronan said. "Not after what I've seen." Sorelli studied him. "So what now?" He stood. "Now I run. We run." She tilted her head. "They will track you. You know that." "I do. They'll destroy your ship. They'll send assassins." "Probably." She looked confused. "Then what's your plan?" Ronan gave a tired smile. "I was hoping you'd help me come up with one." That night, as the Raven's Hope drifted toward the dark side of a rogue planet, Ronan changed every frequency, scrambled every beacon, and rerouted the ship's ID signature. He deleted his registry data and turned his own name into a ghost file. As far as the galaxy was concerned, Ronan was no longer alive. But the syndicate wasn't stupid. They would check. They would dig. And they would come. Sorelli sat by the control panels with her children wrapped in emergency blankets. For the first time, she wasn't holding a weapon in her eyes. She was watching Ronan with something else, something closer to hope. "I thought humans were cruel," she said. "But maybe, just maybe, I was wrong." Ronan didn't answer. He was too busy setting up the fail-safes. But deep inside, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. He wasn't just flying cargo anymore. He was protecting a family, and he would die before he let anyone hurt them again. The ravens. Hope drifted through deep space, quiet, hidden, forgotten. Inside its metal belly, something strange was happening. Not sabotage, not betrayal. Something rarer. Trust. Cirelli stood in the galley for the first time. Her children sat quietly beside her, eating warm food from real plates. The air wasn't clean, but it wasn't poisoned. The lights were dim, but they weren't blinding. And Ronan wasn't watching them like prisoners. He was fixing a broken panel nearby, half listening, half working. She could have escaped, knocked him out, taken the ship. But she hadn't. Not because she was weak, but because something inside her said, "Wait." Earlier that morning, Ronan had handed her something. Not food, not medicine, a small bracelet. It was old and rusty, something human kids wore when traveling on long flights. "What is this?" she had asked. "It's called an ID tag," Ronan replied. "It stores a name, a home address." She stared at him. He continued, "I know you lost your home, but if you want, I can set this to say, Cirelli, home, Raven's hope." She didn't take it, but she didn't say no either. Now in the galley, Talo looked healthier. Mina laughed when the ship's cleaning bot chased a spilled piece of food across the floor. Ronan tried not to smile. Cirelli noticed. She watched him for a moment, then said, "You are not a soldier." "No," Ronan replied. "But I used to be." She looked surprised. "You fought?" He nodded. "In the Human Korath War, 15 years ago." She blinked. "That was before I was taken." Ronan glanced at her. "You were a soldier too, weren't you?" Silence. Then she said, "Not just a soldier, a blade guard." Ronan whistled low. "Elite." "Not anymore," she said. Her voice was soft, bitter. "Now I'm just a mother with nothing." Ronan set his tool down and looked at her directly. "You have something. 2 children who look at you like you're the stars." She looked down at Mina, who had fallen asleep on her lap. "I had a husband," Cirelli said quietly. "He died protecting us. I thought no one else would ever care." Ronan said nothing, because he didn't have words for that. So instead, he stood, walked to the shelf, and brought over a small bottle. Not alcohol, juice, cheap and sweet. He poured 2 cups and set one in front of her. Cirelli hesitated, then took it. They drank in silence. But the silence wasn't cold anymore. Later that night, Ronan walked into the storage room and saw something that made him freeze. Talo had taken apart his old flight goggles and made a toy out of them, something that looked like a bird with wings. Cirelli stood beside him, holding tools Ronan hadn't given her. He stepped forward, tense. "Where did you get that?" Cirelli raised her hands calmly. "Your tool locker, I didn't break anything." Ronan looked at the boy's creation. It was beautiful. "It flies," Talo said, his voice shy. Ronan blinked. "What?" The boy pressed a small switch. The wings flapped slowly, powered by a tiny battery. Ronan watched, amazed. "You made that?" he asked. Talo nodded. "Mama showed me how." Cirelli didn't smile, but her eyes shone. "I thought you were a fighter," Ronan said. "I was," she replied, "but I was an engineer before that. My family built ships, my husband too." Ronan exhaled. "Then maybe I'm not the only one fixing broken things on this ship." That night, before sleep, Ronan found the bracelet again. The ID tag. He walked to the back where Cirelli and the children now rested in makeshift beds. He gently placed the bracelet beside her pillow. She didn't wake. But in the morning, when Ronan passed the galley, he saw the bracelet on her wrist. Set to Cirelli, home Raven's hope, and just like that he knew she didn't trust him yet, but she was starting to, and in a galaxy full of lies, war, and pain. That was more powerful than any weapon. It started with a flicker, a faint blinking red light on the control panel. Signal ping detected, Unknown vessel approaching. Ronan stared at the screen, his heart suddenly heavy. Already? He whispered. That was fast. The syndicate had found them. He turned off every non-essential system and shut down exterior lights. The Raven's Hope went dark, drifting like space junk. But the approaching ship didn't turn away. It kept coming, too fast, too direct. They knew. Ronan rushed to the hidden room. Sorelli was already standing. Talo and Mina were bundled up in thermal wraps. She had sensed it too. Her instincts, sharpened by war and survival, were screaming. Go, she said. You have to drop us. Let us go in an escape pod. You might still get away. Ronan shook his head. I'm not leaving you. Then at least hide the children. He hesitated, but then nodded. He led them to the lower chamber, a narrow duct crawl space only a small person could enter. He handed Talo a small emergency oxygen pack and kissed Mina on the head. Stay quiet no matter what you hear. Talo looked up at him. Will you come back? Ronan tried to smile. You bet. The syndicate ship didn't knock. It slammed into the Raven's Hope with a hard duck. Metal shrieked. The hull groaned. The power flickered. Ronan stood by the door with a blaster in one hand and a toolkit in the other. He had no army. No backup, just one decision. Protect them or die trying. The airlock hissed. 3 figures entered, tall, armored, glowing red visors, syndicate enforcers. One held a scanner. The life signs are faint. He scrubbed the logs, one said. Check. The lower decks, said another. He's stalling. Ronan stepped forward. You're trespassing on a civilian freighter. The lead enforcer grabbed him by the throat and shoved him back into the wall. Where are they? He growled. I flushed them into a sun, Ronan gasped. You're too late. The enforcer didn't believe him. He threw Ronan across the hallway. The blaster skidded out of reach. They moved to the back. Ronan coughed, groaning, and crawled after them. But he wasn't alone anymore. The sound came first. A high electric whir. Then, flash, the back enforcer staggered, sparks flying from his helmet. He dropped, twitching. Behind him stood Sorelli, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. She held a plasma torch, its blue flame humming, her eyes fierce. The second enforcer spun, but she was faster. She slammed the torch into his side. His armor sparked and cracked. Then Ronan was up, grabbing his blaster and firing, at the lead. One shot to the chest, another to the head. The visor shattered. He dropped. 3 enforcers, all down. Ronan leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Remind me, never to make you mad. Sorelli wiped blood from her lip. They'll send more, I know, and they'll keep coming, he nodded. Then we have to stop running. They dumped the bodies into the recycling chute and rigged the syndicate ship to explode after launch. But before that, Ronan did something risky. He sent a message to the syndicate. This is Ronan. Your cargo is gone. Your agents are dead. I am not afraid of you. Come again, and I won't just hide. I'll hunt. He hit send. Sorelli stood beside him, watching. They will double the bounty now. I hope so, Ronan said. Because now I know why I'm fighting. She looked at him. Really looked, then reached out and placed her hand on his. You are not fighting alone. And for the first time, their hands didn't feel like enemies from 2 worlds. They felt like a team. Far across space, in a syndicate control room, a cold, blue-skinned figure watched the message playback. Ronan, he said, smiling. So, you chose to protect them. Fine. Let's see how long you last. He turned to his officer. Put a price on his head, alive or dead, and bring me the alien children. I want them back. Back on the Raven's Hope, Ronan sat by the crawl space door. He tapped twice. Talo crawled out, followed by sleepy Mina. They're gone, Ronan said. You're safe. For now. Talo hugged him tightly, and when Ronan looked up, Sorelli was watching with something new in her eyes. Not just survival, not just trust, loyalty, and it was stronger than fear. Ronan wasn't healing fast. The bruises from the last syndicate fight still covered his ribs. One arm was wrapped in makeshift bandages. His blaster had burn marks. His ship was leaking fuel again. But none of that scared him. What scared him was the way Cirelli looked at the stars now. She stood at the viewport, arms crossed, eyes hard. Not in fear, in anger. They won't stop, she said, until we're dead, or worse. Ronan leaned against the wall. Then we make our stand. No more hiding. Cirelli didn't argue. That was the scariest part. Tallow and Mina were sleeping. In a secured chamber, Ronan had armored himself. He had reinforced the walls, sealed the door, and set up 3 emergency escape options. If the worst happened, the kids would live. He would make sure of it, even if he didn't. He sat in the engine room, checking every wire, every control. Suddenly, the alarm screamed. Warning, incoming boarders. Multiple life signs detected. Ronan rushed to the cockpit. 3 ships, no insignias, no ID tags, syndicate killers. They weren't here to talk, they were here to end him. Cirelli was already arming herself, not with his blasters. With her blades, curved, glowing, elegant weapons Ronan had never seen before. She pulled them from a case hidden inside her bag. "What are those?" he asked, wide-eyed. She looked at him. "You saved my children. These are all I have left of my husband. It's time I use them again." Ronan handed her his last charge. "Pack. Then let's send a message they'll never forget." The ship was rocked as the first team landed. Doors hissed. Sparks flew. Shadows moved through smoke. Ronan took the left corridor. Cirelli took the right. They split like fire and wind. Ronan fired fast. 2 shots down, ducked under a blade, slammed a door shut behind him. He was moving on pure instinct now. He rounded a corner and stopped. An enforcer was aiming at the children's chamber. Ronan's heart dropped. He ran. Too far. Too slow. So he did the only thing he could. He threw himself between the gun and the door. Bang. Pain exploded in his shoulder. He hit the floor hard. The enforcer stepped forward. "You can't protect them forever," the masked figure growled. "No," Ronan coughed. "But I can buy them 1 more second." Then came the sound of metal slicing air. A scream. The enforcer's head rolled across the floor. Cirelli stood behind him, blades dripping. She dropped to her knees beside Ronan. "You idiot," she whispered. He smiled through the pain. "You're welcome." She pulled him to safety, sealing the chamber with a blast lock. Then she pressed her glowing hand against his wound. Energy flowed from her palm into his torn flesh. "You're using your life force," Ronan gasped. "I have enough," she said. "And you are not dying. Not now." He gritted his teeth. "You're full of surprises." She looked at him. "You chose to stand between death and my children. That's something only a father would do." Ronan blinked. She added softly, "If you want it to be." Outside, more enforcers landed, but they were too late. Cirelli activated a trap Ronan had built. An explosion tore through the hallway, collapsing. The entrance behind them. The children were safe. The invaders were gone. And in the middle of the wreckage, Cirelli and Ronan sat side by side, bloodied, bruised, but still alive, still together. "You need rest," she told him. "I need answers," he replied. "Why do they want you so badly?" Cirelli hesitated. Then slowly she said, "Because I'm not just a refugee. I'm the last survivor of the royal bloodline of Lysarai. My children carry what the syndicate fears most." "Which is?" he asked. She looked down at her hand, still glowing faint blue. "Hope." And Ronan knew, without question, he would die before letting that hope be stolen. Because that wasn't just an alien woman anymore. That wasn't just her children. They were his family now. The galaxy was wide, cold and watching, and now it was hunting. Ronan's face was on every outlaw terminal. Wanted, Ronan Dane, alive if possible, dead if necessary. Reward, 700,000 credits. Next to his image was another, Cirelli, and below that, 2 small profiles labeled high-value juveniles. The syndicate wasn't just chasing them, it was declaring war. Ronan stared at the bounty notice glowing on the cockpit screen. He didn't flinch. He had expected this. But what shook him more was seeing the word father appear beside his name in intercepted chatter. They had tagged him as their guardian, their protector, and deep down, that made him proud. The ship was silent. Everyone was sleeping. For once, there were no alarms, no gunfire, no blood, just soft breathing. Cirelli sat across from him in the galley, both sipping hot nutrient broth. Her blades rested on the table between them, cleaned and sharpened. "I used to dream of freedom," she said, staring into her cup. "Now I dream of safety." Ronan nodded. "Safety is the new freedom." She looked up. "And do you regret this? Saving us?" He smiled slightly. "Regret is for people who had better choices." Talo and Mina had started calling him something new. Not Ronan, not Captain, not Stranger. They called him Dara, a Lycerai word meaning protector father. At first he tried to correct them. "I'm not your real father," he said, but Talo shook his head. "You are the one who stayed." That quiet truth hit harder than any bullet. Cirelli began teaching the children in the ship's cargo bay. She drew star maps from memory, taught them how to repair power lines, and even showed them how to move silently through corridors, just in case. Ronan joined in. He taught them how to cook simple meals, how to aim a blaster without shooting their foot, and most importantly, how to make a joke even in the dark. The ship was becoming something it had never been before, not just a place to hide. Home. But peace never lasted long in the stars. A coded message came through one morning, short and trembling. "Ronan, they're searching systems near the outer belt. You need to move. They've sent assassins." It was from an old contact, someone who still owed him a favor. Ronan cut the transmission and turned to Cirelli. "We can't stay in drift mode. We need somewhere real, somewhere that can fight back." She hesitated, then slowly said, "There's one place." The world was called Varnai, a hidden moon in the spiral fringe, lush, alive, and shielded by natural radiation storms that blocked long-range scanners. More importantly, it was once Helisarai outpost, one of the last. "We may still have allies there," Cirelli whispered. Ronan set course. The journey wasn't easy. Storms struck their shields. Radiation fried a backup generator, but they made it. Varnai was green and glowing from orbit. Thick jungles, tall cliffs, rivers like silver veins. As the ship landed, Ronan stepped onto the soil and felt something strange. Peace. But not for long. They were surrounded. Dozens of armed figures appeared from the brush, alien warriors in armor, faces painted, weapons raised. Cirelli stepped forward and lifted her wrist. A symbol glowed beneath her skin. The warriors fell to one knee. "She lives," one whispered. "The royal bloodline survives." That night, under alien stars, the family sat beside a glowing fire. Talo and Mina were laughing with other children. Ronan leaned back against a tree, his arm wrapped in fresh bandages, watching them. Cirelli sat beside him, her head resting gently on his shoulder. "You're one of us now," she said. "I think I've been one of you for a while," Ronan replied. She looked at him, her eyes soft. "If I asked you to stay, would you?" He looked at the fire, the children, the stars, and nodded. "I'm not running anymore." But far away, aboard a massive syndicate command ship, a new message was sent. Not to kill Ronan, not to capture the children, but to destroy the entire moon. "Make an example of them," the commander said, and the stars shifted once more. The moon of Varnai was peaceful on the surface. Birds with crystal wings flew over the trees. Rivers sparkled under the twin suns. The jungle breathed in calm silence. But deep beneath that silence, danger was coming. A syndicate warship, 10 times the size of Raven's Hope, was cutting through space like a blade. Its mission was clear: burn the moon, leave no survivors, no warnings, No mercy. Ronan stood at the top of the cliff, looking down at the valley. Children played. Warriors trained. Cirelli spoke to the council. And still Ronan felt the storm in his bones. "They're coming," he said to the wind. "I can feel it." Behind him, Tallow walked up quietly. "Dara," the boy said, "if they come again, will we run?" Ronan looked down at him. "Do you want to run?" Tallow shook his head. "I want to fight." Ronan smiled. "Then we fight, but not alone this time." The elders of Varnai were slow to act. "Why would they target us?" one asked. "Because lives," Ronan said, pointing to Cirelli, "and because they're afraid." Another elder frowned. "We have no fleet, no cannons. We cannot win against a syndicate ship." "Maybe not with ships," Ronan said, "but we have something they don't." "What?" He looked at Cirelli, then at the children playing in the distance. Family, and people who were done being afraid. For 3 days they prepared. Ronan repaired old defense satellites buried under vines. Cirelli trained the new warriors in silent movement and blade techniques. Tallow and Mina worked with village scouts, learning signals and hiding routes. Everyone had a task. Even the cook started making food that could last through a siege. The moon itself, so peaceful, became a shield. And when the sky finally turned black with the shape of a syndicate warship, no one screamed, no one ran. They stood together. The attack began with fire. Plasma beams rained from the sky, burning trees, shaking the ground. But they didn't hit the village. Ronan's decoy system worked. Fake heat signals in the jungle confused their sensors. The first wave of syndicate troops landed far from the real camp. Ronan smiled as the alarms flashed. Let them chase shadows. But it wouldn't last. Soon the real attack began. Armored drop pods crashed into the valley. Syndicate enforcers poured out, firing, shouting, scanning. Ronan led the first defense line. He ducked behind a tree trunk, aimed, and fired 3 shots. One enemy dropped, then another, then a third. But they kept coming. Too many. Then came a blur beside him. Cirelli, her blades dancing like lightning. She moved between enemies like water, cutting through armor and flame. A warrior shouted, "The Queen fights beside us." Morale soared. Still, the syndicate pushed forward. Tallow and Mina were moved to the safe tunnels with other children. Ronan gave them each a comm and a hug. "If anything happens, get to the far end of the tunnels. There's an old crawler ship. It'll take you far." Tallow looked up. "Are you coming?" Ronan touched his forehead. "You're my son. Of course I'm coming." Mina held out her small hand. "Promise?" Ronan kissed it. "Promise." Hours passed. Smoke filled the air. Trees burned, but the village still stood. Then came the syndicate's final weapon, a Titan mech, 3 stories tall, armed with plasma cannons and shields. Ronan stared at it in shock. "We don't have anything that can stop that." Cirelli appeared beside him, bruised, breathing hard. "We do now." She pulled out a small device from her belt. "What is that?" he asked. "The last command linked to Lycerai's royal AI. You never said you had that." "I didn't trust anyone before." She pressed it. High above, one of the old satellites, thought to be dead, activated. It locked onto the Titan mech and fired. A single silent beam of white light cut through the jungle. The mech exploded in a wave of blue fire. The ground shook. Silence followed. Then came cheering. The syndicate troops, leaderless and stunned, began retreating. The people of Varnai gave chase, not with rage, but with pride. Ronan watched the enemy ships lift off and vanish into the clouds. It was over. For now. That night, under starlight and campfire sparks, the people celebrated. Children danced, warriors sang. And Ronan, he sat on a fallen tree, holding a warm drink and watching his new family laugh. Cirelli sat beside him. "You saved them," she whispered. "You trained them," he replied. "You gave us a future." He turned to her. "No, You all gave me something better. She looked curious. What? Ronan smiled. A reason to stop running. Tallow climbed into his lap. Mina hugged his side. Cirelli leaned on his shoulder. In that moment, under alien stars, in a place no map remembered, a traitor with no past, a warrior with no kingdom, 2 children with no home. They weren't lost anymore. They were a family. Epilogue weeks later. A new message circled in secret channels, not from the Syndicate, but from other resistance groups, rebel captains and free colonies. A message that said, if one man can stand against the Syndicate and win, then maybe we all can. It carried a single image. Ronan standing between children and soldiers, wounded but still standing, and beneath it, a name, Dara, the Protector Father.